What do you want to do before dying? I've already heard lots of different answers to this question. Climb Mount Everest, have grandchildren, go from San Jose to Alaska by bike, write a book, have a great new love, live life to its fullest, ask forgiveness for my sins. But I had no idea the impact one answer would have on me. This question was inspired in the project Before I Die, I Want To, by artist Candy Chang. Her goal is to allow people to share their hopes and dreams. So in December of 2019, when I got the answer, I want to keep on working, it struck me as an ambition I wouldn't pursue. My relationship with work has always been very clear. I'm passionate about my job, and I make a point of committing myself to it. But it didn't represent who I was. My dedication to my wife, my children, and my parents defined my essence. I strive to be a role model, to be supportive, to be silly, to be a travel companion, to be a storyteller. My inner conflicts arise when I judge I was not the best husband, father, or son I could have been. Providentially, the answer I want to keep on working was my father's. My father is a hard-working doctor, but he's also an adventurer. Riding motorcycles, flying airplanes, paragliding, scuba diving with sharks, venturing through the wetlands of Pantanal and the Amazon are some of the things he has already done. When I inquired why he wanted to carry on working so hard, he first replied that he still wanted to contribute to society. But then he added, "Actually, I don't want to become irrelevant." I went from pride to perplexity like a crashing car. A flash of time that took forever. My father is an obstetrician who has literally delivered tens of thousands of children. He has helped several couples to fulfill their impossible dream. Life and death are part of the medical routine, but one of my favorite memories is of my father saying that he chose to become an obstetrician because there is no greater celebration of life than the birth of a child. How can such a person ever become irrelevant? My father explained that he had read a book that impressed him deeply. Homo Deus, A Brief History of Tomorrow by Yuval Noah Harari. He told me that technology is evolving so fast and intensely that human beings will become irrelevant. Technology is gonna take our place. I need to keep on working. I can't be irrelevant. I was saddened by my father's imminent and alarmist fear. Machine domination over humans is an old concern. When I talk about this subject with my students, I usually argue that before fearing, we must first understand what technology is. Any resource created by humans over the course of evolution is technological advancement. So evil outcomes and extraordinary feats aren't conceived in artificial minds. Perhaps we should ask ourselves, why are machines more efficient than us? Is it because we are living mechanically and not passionately? We must celebrate life and not fear the future. But then a new fear took over the world, the COVID-19 pandemic. All the uncertainties the future held became unarguably terrifying. Day after day, death was celebrated, with the death toll being painstakingly broadcasted and obsessively followed around the world. It took me some time to understand how grave the situation was. And as a person who could finally fulfill his dream of working from home so I could be with my children, I was astounded to realize that I was working 16, 20, and even 38-hour shifts, and I was spending less time with my family. But as the days went by, I abandoned my initial skepticism. Technological challenges became routine, and I managed to squeeze some breaks within the long work hours to spend a little time with my family. As a matter of fact, we were blessed by our decision to quarantine in my father's farm. Our confinement offered freedom that most people didn't have. But I would be lying if I said we didn't have to face our inner demons. Still, the lushness of nature offered us comfort that couldn't be found in social media. When talking to my students during classes, the fear, uncertainty, and frustration that many felt was evident. Benefits like avoiding daily traffic jams or having every family member safe at home didn't offer enough comfort. That's why several times the scheduled content for the class was left out, and I would virtually sit around with them to talk about our feelings. At that time, I used to begin my classes by sharing tokens of nature that I had recorded in the countryside. Birds, flowers, or the sunrise. The tiny squares that everyone was forced to face daily would become broad windows that allowed the contemplation of nature. Regardless, work demands were swelling again. I have been a teacher for 20 years, and learning and developing new skills is a permanent need. But from one week to the next, it became an urgent need. The search for new digital tools trapped me in front of the computer. Tutorials were watched at twice the speed to learn in half of the time. Deadlines for posting video lessons, correcting activities, delivering reports, online meetings occupied my mind 24 hours a day. I needed to keep on working to manage my anxiety. I needed to keep on working to manage my anxiety. I needed to keep on working to manage my anxiety. There are some defining moments in our lives. My essence changed. I became a workaholic. This is a very common and even praised condition nowadays. However, my family was no longer the priority in my mind, and it was painful. Nevertheless, I knew I had to fulfill my professional obligations. But as Pope Francis said in his latest TED Talk, we are never the same after a crisis, and after this crisis we cannot be the same. For me, this means that changes are inevitable, and that's why it's necessary to choose how to live with them. Isolation and social distancing, however important, created barriers that required creativity to be overcome. And through technology, new opportunities have emerged. I became a character in stories and shared adventures with my super cool students. My YouTube videos have become the stage to remind my students what kind of people they had aspired to be before the pandemic numbed so many dreams. And as working has been the focus of my routine, my family was incorporated into it. They tested the games I created. My wife and children were recruited to produce photos and videos. My wife helps me organize all the remote appointments that happen on a daily basis. I'm not a futurologist, so I have no intention of predicting possible or probable futures. But there's one thing I can assert. The one permanent fact throughout history is that everything changes. The world, technology, or the life of each living being. That's why we must not steer clear of changes, but we should grow with them. Our struggle is against the things that diminish humankind, such as hatred, corruption, prejudice, and indifference. Then, what I have to say to my dad and the people who fear that technology is going to make us irrelevant is this. Technology is our tool, and as members of the human race, we have to use it for the benefit of our planet, to reduce social inequality, to provide education for all people, and to allow each individual to live with dignity. People are not products with planned obsolescence. Human beings become irrelevant when they choose to abandon their purpose. So, before I die, I choose to be a husband, to be a father, to be a son, to be a teacher, and to be relevant in the lives of the people who define who I am.